One of the things that I really like about personal Kanban is that each board is truly unique. Every system reflects the person or the team that is using the board, and there's a lot of different creativity and variations that you can use in creating a system that works just right for you at that moment in time. Of course, as your life changes or as work changes with your team, um, you'll change your board to reflect those different needs and goals. So to give you a sense for what you can do, I'm going to take you through a tour of several different Kanban boards. Some are more complex, some are more simple, some have different things that they're trying to visualize, but really give you a good taste for what you can do with your own personal Kanban system. In this first board, you can see here that we've got a prioritization system of 3 columns, and the person is also using some color on the titles to denote the different types of work, and using checkboxes to keep track of the subtasks needed to finish an item. With this one, you'll see a couple new things here. First off, there is a 3-column prioritization again, but this is using something called a prioritization filter, which we'll get into later in the course, where there's 3 columns and the amount of post-its in each column gets progressively smaller. But 2 of the things that stand out for me in this board, one is at the bottom you have some repetitive work, which we all do. And in this case, he's tracking them by daily and weekly and using some smaller indicators to show whether or not he's completed them or not. And on the far side, his done column, he's actually noting not only whether something's done, but in what day it got done. So he's able to see some other fluctuations and patterns that otherwise wouldn't be so visible. Here's an example of a board I worked with a small business owner, where she really had to focus on balancing her efforts across 3 different kinds of work. And due to her health situation, she didn't have a lot of time that she could devote to her work. So what we did is we broke those 3 areas into different colors, and in particular on the done side, we put limits so that if she got so many of one type of task done, once she hit that limit, it was a signal for her to do other things, and that actually worked pretty well for her. Last thing I'll mention is we discovered that all the blue stuff was actually things that she could delegate. So a whole pile of work that she had previously been keeping track of, she was now able to push that off to someone else. So not every board has to be super fancy and pretty. So this is a previous version of my home board with my wife, and as you can see here, we're just using recycled bits of paper and a bulletin board that's starting to get a little beaten up. We've got our work across 6 different categories because we were very interested in seeing how we were spending our time across these things that matter to us. And on our done side, we also have different buckets so that we can count up at the end of each week when we did our little retrospective on where we'd put our time and what was satisfying and what wasn't. Here's a newer version of our board. So here we're using poster board, and you can see here I've got this thin green lines. We've got our repetitive stuff in daily, weekly, monthly. And for us, colors denote really things that we feel are growth related or just things we have to get done. So the blue is kind of the have to get done, and the green are the things that are more valuable to us. So at a quick glance, we can kind of see how many greens versus blues, and the oranges are higher level goals. You can see there's some two improvement goals that we're working on, as well as a big rock area in the ready and in the doing column, so that we're also trying to focus more on the less urgent but more important stuff that often gets lost in the day-to-day life. Here's a sample of my digital board. So I use this strictly for my professional work. So very standard approach: ready today, doing, waiting for, and done. One variation that I've done to try to balance time across different categories is setting limits on how many post-its or tasks in each area of focus. So I can only plan so many at a time, I can only do so many at a time, and my cycle is one week. One of the things I found in working with personal Kanban with this individual is she went from overwhelmed to just ready to dive in and get things done. So she meets with a lot of clients, she does a lot of counseling, and so we were able to define the very standard process that she goes through to put the little checklist of things that have to be done in each step, which sometimes get forgotten, and then within each step, whether or not she was able to do something or she was waiting on the client. So this really helped her to focus her efforts and also to see where work was piling up. Now, for Julie here, you can see she's got a lot going on in her world. She manages a student nutrition program, and it's really been helpful for her, particularly working with her manager, but also with other people in the program, for them to kind of see all the things that are going on. Clearly, she's got some capacity issues here, but finally now we're able to see that. So we've put in some limits to try to optimize her flow. In the done column at this time, we were interested in seeing out of the unplanned stuff what was coming at her and when, so that we could try to manage some of those interruptions. We also have an improvement tracking sheet. So we've listed 3 different things that she wants to work on, everything from going home on time to taking lunch. So, the things that are important to her in her own life that add more joy to her day. We've also got some weekly improvement goals, and her backlog is well organized into many different colors. I think she has the biggest collection of Post-its of anyone I've ever worked with before. For this next board, this person is a specialist in the organization, and he needed help in trying to balance all the needs from many different stakeholders. So this is a very early iteration of his system. So what we decided to do is look at the kinds of work that he's doing and create a separate workflow for each one. So you can see that tasks don't have to all have the same workflow, and often they don't. So here we can quickly see what kinds of work that he's doing and how much of it, and what stage it's at, and also keep track of the repetitive stuff. And lastly, we're also here in this case trying to track interruptions, this time by just recording them on a sheet. Flipping back to the student nutrition program, Julie works with individuals in different parts of the region. So what we decided to do to create visibility for themselves, but also as a group, each person has a horizontal row or a swimming lane to manage their own work. So what that does is it helps them see as a program how they're doing, but also manage their individual work. And that will also then allow them to do other things down the road, like as they have capacity to do other things, they can see what's there and pull stuff in and know who's working on what, for instance. Now, because this is a digital tool, they'll also be able to get some useful statistics around how well they're doing with their response time for getting school reports in this example. When I was working with Iona here, she had a real mess of her to-do section. So 2 things that we did. One was to turn things into different colors so she could see the different kinds of things she's working on. Also put them, organize them by category, so we have 3 different buckets here. And then prioritize them. So from top to bottom, from left to right, She has her post-its per category prioritized so that she spends less time scanning her post-its to figure out what to do. Same thing with the other columns, her ready, her today, her doing, and this is consistent with most of the systems. Everything's prioritized vertically so that it's easy to scan and see what needs to be done next. As I mentioned earlier, a physical board doesn't lend itself to being carried around that easily. So one helpful approach that's in Jim Benson's book on personal Kanban is to use a file folder system where you can take the post-its that you're working on, say for the day or a couple of days, put them in this smaller version and track them across so that when you come back, you can just put them back up on the board and update it that way. You can also, as you're out there, write things on post-its and then more easily transcribe them back up onto the board. Much easier than using a notebook or a digital, half physical solution. That was a great feedback that I got from Ashley. And you see, in every system is quite different. In her case, she has some group work, she has some individual client work, and this is again an early version of her system. There's definitely some things I'd want to change and improve here, but at least for the first time, she's really seeing where everything is at. And one of the things that is unique for her is she has these reviews that she has to do her client cases called quarterlies. So we've got a list of them printed on the whiteboard much faster than her trying to scan through her digital system, and she can kind of see by date when they're due. In this case, Sherry, she has a very standard approach to the work that she does, and she has a lot of traffic that comes through her doors, meeting with potential clients. And so one of the things that she was doing was putting everything in a file folder system, which worked okay, but it didn't give her that quick glance as to where everything was at. And so one of the things that she really likes about the system here is she can see very quickly what needs to be done and just go at it. This particular system, Kanban Flow, she really likes the ability to just click on an item and have it expand and give her more details about it, or just to throw in some notes related to that she can pull up easily later. And also this way now too, she and her supervisor can see the impact in this case of some work in red being prioritized over other things that then leads to this bottleneck in report writing. This is such a common thing. It almost seems like one of the primary goals of any Kanban system that I've been setting up is for people to help deal with all the interruptions that come in their day. They've got things they want to get done, but somehow that time keeps disappearing. So for Wyatt here, we just set up his done column with between unplanned and planned, just to try to figure out where his time was going. And actually, when we did a retrospective, he really learned a lot, and that led to talking to his supervisor and recognizing that there was a need to hire someone to take on a particular kind of work that was the majority of his unplanned stuff. In his case, he's got some stuff that's project level, so he's kind of more of a portfolio. He's kind of a manager of different areas, so he's kind of managing things at a portfolio level. And where there are projects where he wants to get into more details, we've got some separate swim lanes at the bottom for that. So similar to Wyatt, this person does a lot of event-based work. So, but that's not everything. There's also things around administration, dealing with the board and committees, and just general marketing. And we wanted a way to be able to see all of that and obviously not get too overwhelmed, so that we're focusing on the right things. So on the far left we have all the different projects, which are primarily events. And in the second column we have the non-event work using different colors. And they all flow through 3-column prioritization lanes. We also have some repetitive stuff, and again those flow through those lanes. And then on the far right, we have buckets again to show where the work is going, making sure that we're getting balance across all those areas and one area isn't starving too much. So that's the quick tour. You can see there's a lot of different things you can do, both digitally and physically, and I hope this has given you some ideas and also some excitement to create your own personal system.